There is a lot that science knows, but it's nowhere near knowing everything there is to know. It can be something small, like why humans need sleep, or something big, like how the universe is formed or what really happens after death. While scientists often come up with logical theories to explain the reasons behind them, there is sometimes no single accepted answer. And in this video, we're going to look at some of the most brain-bending secrets scientists still can't explain. Where did Earth's water actually come from? About 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. We mean, whichever way you look at it, that's a lot of water. But the weird thing is that while we know that our planet formed about 4.5 billion years ago, no one can say for sure where all that water actually came from. Scientists do, however, that have some theories about how Earth got so wet. Broadly speaking, those theories split into two different types. As Dr. Helena Bates, who is a postdoctoral researcher in meteorite science at the Natural History Museum in London, explains, one idea is that Earth formed in a part of space where water already existed in some form, mixed in with the rocky material that built the planet. The second theory says that Earth formed in a region so hot that water couldn't have survived there at all, and that the water we have today was delivered later by other objects in the solar system. And as unbelievable as that sounds, it actually makes perfect sense. One type of meteorite, known as carbonaceous chondrites, can contain up to 10% water. Back in the early solar system, Earth was being bombarded far more violently than it is today. According to Professor Sarah Russell, who is also from the Natural History Museum, scientists study the hydrogen to deuterium ratio in meteorites and comets to look for clues. That ratio acts almost like a fingerprint. Still, no single answer fits neatly, and most scientists now think Earth's water probably came from a combination of sources. In simple words, scientists can't explain it. What gravity really is. Thanks to Sir Isaac Newton, we know what gravity does. It's a force that pulls things toward one another, keeps your feet on the ground, holds the moon in orbit around Earth, and keeps Earth circling the sun. While we understand what it does, scientists still can't fully explain what gravity actually is. Our best modern explanation came from Albert Einstein in 1915, when he introduced his general theory of relativity, that according to him, gravity isn't just some invisible force pulling objects together. Instead, huge objects like the sun actually bend space-time itself, which is the fabric of the universe. Earth then moves through that bend, which is why it orbits the sun in the first place. And honestly, that idea is brilliant. But there's still a problem. Gravity doesn't behave like the other three fundamental forces of nature. Those forces are carried by particles called bosons. For example, electromagnetism is carried by photons. Gravity, however, still has no confirmed particle behind it. Scientists have long searched for a hypothetical one called the graviton, but no one has ever found it, and maybe never will. And things got even stranger in 2015, when scientists confirmed the existence of gravitational waves. Something Einstein had predicted a century earlier. Now, that should have answered more questions, but it created new ones. The mysterious musical phenomenon of Dunhuang. If you've ever read Josephine Tey's 1952 novel, The Singing Sands, then you already know how eerie this sounds. In that story, a police inspector gets caught in a murder case tied to a strange poem ending with the words, "The Singing Sand." It's of course a fiction, but singing sand is very real. It has been reported in places as far apart as Indiana, Japan, Egypt, China, the Namib Desert in Namibia, the Sahara Desert, and California's Mojave Desert. Still, one of the most famous examples is found in Dunhuang in northwestern Gansu province, where the dunes of the Kumtag Desert seem to hum, boom, and sing when wind and sand move together in just the right way. Some of these dunes rise to about 5,626 feet, and the sound can sometimes be heard from as far as 6 miles away. Well, that alone feels unreal, because these dunes sit along the old Silk Road, which linked Central Asia and Europe for around 1,500 years. From the 2nd century BCE, they picked up a lot of legend too. One story says the sound comes from people buried under the sand by an angered yellow dragon prince. Scientists do have part of the explanation. NOAA says the sound depends on the size, shape, dryness, slope, and silica content of the grains. A 2012 study pointed in the same direction, but why those vibrations sometimes sound almost musical instead of just harsh noise is still not fully understood. Do you have any idea about it? What came before the Big Bang? After a lot of controversy, the scientists finally found real evidence of the Big Bang, the event that started the universe as we know it. But the question that still hangs over everything is this: what was there before it? If something could explode, then something had to exist first. The problem is, no one really knows what that something was, how it behaved, or how it led to an event so big that the universe is still expanding from it 13.8 billion years later. For a long time, scientists believed the universe had always existed and would keep going forever. But modern cosmology doesn't support that anymore. The evidence points to a clear beginning. Right now, scientists can describe what happened starting about 1 second after the Big Bang, when the universe cooled enough for particles like protons and neutrons to form. But the moment of the Big Bang itself, and anything before it, is still out of reach. Some theories suggest everything was once packed into an incredibly hot, dense state, though no one agrees on whether it was infinitely small or stretched beyond measure. Others think the Big Bang might not have been a one-time event at all, but part of a repeating cycle. There's also the idea that before it, there was simply nothing. Even Stephen Hawking pointed out that asking what came before might not make sense, because time itself may have begun there, but that hasn't stopped anyone from thinking. Dark matter. What it is, really? We don't know how old dark matter is or what it actually is, because we can't see it, touch it, or even detect it directly. It makes up 85% of the cosmos, but scientists are fairly sure it's there. Now, when the reason is simple, galaxies are behaving in a way that makes no sense without it. Their outer stars are moving so fast that by all logic, they should have broken away and drifted off into space long ago. But they haven't. Something invisible appears to be holding everything together. That mystery goes back to the 1930s, when Swiss astronomer Fritz Zwicky noticed galaxies seemed to contain far more mass than anyone could account for. Later, in the 1970s, astronomer Vera Rubin found the same thing while studying how galaxies spin. And ever since then, scientists have suspected there's some kind of hidden mass creating extra gravity. For years, the favorite explanation was a hypothetical particle called a WIMP, short for weakly interacting massive particle. Physicists spent years building detectors and running experiments to find one, but they got nothing. So now the search has widened. Some think dark matter could be made of axions, and others point to primordial black holes formed shortly after the Big Bang. And then there's MOND, or modified Newtonian dynamics, which argues dark matter might not exist at all, and that gravity itself behaves differently across galaxies. And that's what makes this one so maddening. Undoubtedly, something is clearly there, but we just still can't say what. Is there life on Mars? Now, That's a kind of question not even the genius Charles Duke could answer with certainty. People have been asking it for decades, and Mars has only made the mystery worse. One of the strangest clues ever found came back in 2004, when NASA's Opportunity rover landed on the planet and spotted bizarre, tiny, round, the iron-rich spheres scattered across the ground. Scientists nicknamed them Martian blueberries. At first, researchers thought they were made of hematite, a form of iron oxide slowly built up by water moving through Martian rock. And honestly, that idea made sense because Mars wasn't always the dry, freezing desert it is now. Billions of years ago, it likely had rivers, lakes, and maybe even conditions that could support life. But here's where it gets weird. These blueberries don't really look like the kinds of mineral accretions we see on Earth. They're too smooth, too round, too uniform, and much smaller than expected. Later, scientists in Japan suggested they may have formed when acidic water flowed over calcite-rich material, allowing hematite to gather around it. That theory sounds possible too, but it still depends on comparing Mars to Earth. And Mars has a bad habit of refusing to behave like Earth. Then things got even more interesting in 2024, when NASA's Perseverance rover studied a rock called Chayava Falls and found strange patterns and organic compounds that may point to ancient microbial activity. Still, the mystery hasn't gone away. It's just got bigger. What happens when you die? If there's one thing we can all agree on without argument, it's that every human being is going to die. And for something so universal, it's weird how little we truly understand about what happens once that final moment arrives. Science can explain the process of dying to a point, but what comes after is completely unanswered. Doctors, nurses, and hospice workers do know a lot about what the body does in the final days and hours. According to Julie McFadden, who is a hospice nurse in Los Angeles, the body begins shutting down in stages. A person usually starts eating and drinking less, sleeping more, and slowly pulling away from the world around them. Then comes what specialists call active dying, when breathing becomes irregular, the heart rate shifts, and the body starts losing its usual rhythm. Some people even experience what's known as the rally, which is a sudden burst of clarity or energy shortly before death. And then there are the scarier parts. People who survive near-death experiences often describe tunnels of light, seeing dead relatives, or reliving moments from their lives. Scientists think some of that may come from oxygen loss, brain chemistry, or electrical activity in the dying brain. But that's still theory, not certainty. So, in actuality, no one can explain what really happens after death. How did life start? Well, death is scary. But now, we're talking about life, not just human life, but life in its widest form. Trees, birds, insects, bacteria, and every tiny living thing that crawls, swims, grows, or breathes on this planet. All of it had to begin somewhere. And somehow, at some point, a collection of non-living chemicals crossed a line and became something alive. That is the part scientists still can't explain. There are plenty of theories, and some of them are truly fascinating. One of the most famous attempts to understand it came in 1952, when Stanley Miller and Harold Urey carried out what became known as the Miller-Urey experiment. They recreated the conditions of early Earth inside a laboratory by mixing gases and firing electrical sparks through them to imitate lightning. What they ended up producing were amino acids, which are some of the essential building blocks of life. It was an important breakthrough, but it still did not explain how those ingredients turned into a living organism. Most scientists believe some of life's raw materials may have arrived from space, possibly delivered by meteorites around 4 billion years ago. But even now, no one can say exactly when chemistry stopped being chemistry and somehow became life. Well, that's it from us. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.